The first time Emily saw Daniel was on a quiet spring morning in the little town of Marlow. She had just moved into the neighborhood, her heart carrying the weight of too many goodbyes and unfinished chapters. The local cafe, with its ivy-covered walls and the smell of fresh pastries, had become her safe place. It was there, between the shelves of old books and the sound of a violinist playing on the corner, that Daniel walked in. He wasn't the kind of man who demanded attention. He carried himself with calm confidence, like someone who had learned to listen to the world instead of rushing through it. He ordered black coffee, thanked the barista with a smile that seemed too genuine to be casual, and sat by the window. Emily noticed the notebook in his hand, pages filled with hurried sketches and bits of poetry. She wasn't sure why, but something about him made her heart linger. Days turned into weeks, and they often crossed paths at the cafe. Their conversations began small, about the weather, about the music drifting through the streets, about the book Emily carried in her hand. Slowly, the words between them grew into stories, laughter, and confessions whispered as though the walls might overhear. Daniel told her about his dream of becoming an architect, of designing places that made people feel safe, like homes for wandering souls. Emily, who had always been afraid of staying too long in one place, found herself telling him about her childhood, her fears, her hopes, things she rarely revealed to anyone. One evening, after a long walk by the river, Daniel stopped and looked at her. The world around them was quiet, the street lamps glowing like fireflies. He said softly, "Sometimes, I think people meet not by accident, but because they're meant to help each other find the missing pieces." Emily didn't reply. She simply slipped her hand into his, as if that touch was the answer. Their love grew not in grand gestures but in the silence between words. He would leave notes in her books, little lines of poetry. She would bring him coffee on late nights when he was lost in his sketches. They built something fragile yet strong, like a bridge across two lonely hearts. But life, as it often does, tested them. Daniel received an opportunity abroad, an architectural project that could change his future. The decision tore him apart. Leaving meant risking the love he had found, staying meant giving up a dream he had chased for years. On the night before his departure, he met Emily at the cafe where it all began. Neither spoke much. Instead, he drew a small sketch on a napkin, two hands reaching for each other, never letting go. Beneath it, he wrote, "No matter where I am, you are my home." Emily kept that napkin tucked inside her journal. She watched him leave with tears in her eyes but with an unshaken belief that their story wasn't ending, it was only pausing. Months passed. They wrote letters, real letters, filled with ink stains and pressed flowers. The distance was hard, but their words carried them through. And then, one snowy December evening, when Emily was walking past the cafe, she saw him again, standing at the window, holding a notebook, waiting. "Emily," he whispered, his voice breaking into a smile, "I promised I'd come back to you." And in that moment, under the soft glow of the lights and the quiet hum of the town, they embraced. No words were needed, because some promises, like love itself, are kept in silence. Whispers across the sea. The sound of waves had always been a lullaby to Clara. She grew up in a small coastal town, where the sea was both a friend and a secret keeper. Every evening, after the sun melted into the horizon, she would walk along the shoreline, her notebook in hand, capturing fleeting thoughts and fragments of dreams. She was a writer at heart, though her words had never reached beyond the edges of her town. One summer, a restoration project brought new faces to the old lighthouse that stood proudly at the edge of the cliffs. Among them was Daniel, a young architect from the city, whose quiet demeanor masked a spirit as restless as the sea. He came to oversee the project, to breathe life back into the weathered stone tower that had guided countless sailors home. Their first meeting was accidental. Clara had climbed the hill to watch the sunset when she found Daniel sketching the lighthouse with sharp, precise lines. He looked up, surprised to see someone else there, and she offered him a shy smile. "You're drawing it," she said softly. "And you're writing it," he replied, noticing the notebook in her hands. From that evening, the two strangers began crossing paths, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by chance. She shared her favorite hidden coves, he told her about the cities he had traveled to. Clara was captivated by Daniel's stories of distant skylines and bustling streets, while Daniel found himself drawn to the quiet magic in Clara's words, the way she described her town as if it were alive. As the weeks passed, their walks stretched longer, conversations deeper. Clara showed him the sea caves where she once played as a child, and Daniel confessed his fear, that he was always searching for something, never finding a place where he truly belonged. One night, under a sky filled with stars, Clara read aloud a passage from her notebook. "Sometimes the heart is a lighthouse, shining not to be found, but to guide someone home." Daniel didn't answer at first. He simply looked at her, as if the words had unraveled something inside him. Then, gently, he took her hand. It was the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. The restoration neared its end, and with it came the weight of parting. Daniel's work would soon be done, and the city was calling him back. On their last night together, they sat by the lighthouse, its newly lit beacon casting golden light across the waves. "I don't want to leave," Daniel admitted, his voice rough. "Then don't," Clara whispered, though she knew how impossible that sounded. When the morning came, Daniel was gone. Clara stood on the cliffs, watching the horizon, the salt wind stinging her eyes. She poured her ache into her notebook, turning her sorrow into words. Months slipped by, and though the lighthouse shone brightly, Clara felt a hollow ache whenever she passed it. She wondered if Daniel had already forgotten her, if their nights by the sea were just another fleeting chapter in his wandering life. Then, one winter morning, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar, careful, deliberate. "Clara, I thought I was searching for a place. But what I was truly searching for was a person. And I found her by the sea. I'm coming home, not to the city, not to the lighthouse, but to you." When Clara looked up from the letter, her heart racing, she saw him standing by the shore, a suitcase at his side, the wind whipping his hair. His eyes found hers, full of the same quiet longing, the same unspoken promise. She ran to him, and when he pulled her into his arms, it felt like the tide itself had carried him back to her. The lighthouse stood tall behind them, its light sweeping across the sea, no longer just a beacon for lost sailors, but a witness to a love that had finally found its harbor. A serenade for the stars. In the quaint little town of Belmere, tucked between rolling hills and lakes that shimmered under the sun, there lived a girl named Alara. She was the town's librarian, a quiet soul who found more magic in the pages of a book than in the rush of the world outside. Her days were peaceful, spent among the scent of old books, classical music, and handwritten letters she wrote to no one in particular. But everything changed the summer the piano player arrived. His name was Adrian, a traveling musician with a suitcase full of sheet music and a heart burdened with memories. He came to Belmere seeking silence, hoping to forget a love that had ended in sorrow. He rented the small cottage next to the library and brought life to the dusty piano inside. Each night, melodies drifted through the town like whispers in the wind, tender, longing, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Alara heard them every evening. At first, she listened from her window, drawn to the music like a moth to light. Then, one night, curiosity outweighed her shyness. She followed the sound to the library garden and found Adrian there, playing under the stars. "You always play at midnight," she said softly. Adrian looked up, startled. He smiled, not used to company. "That's when the stars listen best." From that night on, they met beneath the sky, Alara with her books and Adrian with his music. They spoke about everything and nothing, favorite poems, forgotten dreams, the constellations they traced with their fingers. Each night became a ritual, a rhythm more natural than breathing. Adrian played, and Alara read aloud. It was as if the stories wrapped themselves into his music and became something more, something eternal. But love is never simple. Adrian was offered a position in a symphony orchestra in Vienna, a dream he had chased since childhood. The offer meant leaving Belmere, leaving Alara. "I don't know if I can go," he confessed, torn between ambition and the quiet love growing like roots in his soul. Alara looked at him with teary eyes, her voice steady. "You must. Dreams don't wait, Adrian. But I'll be here, waiting under the stars." He left with a promise written in a letter she kept close to her heart. "Every note I play, every stage I stand on, I'll be thinking of you. When I played enough for the world, I'll come back and play just for you." Years passed. Alara continued working at the library, writing letters to him she never sent, listening to his growing fame in newspapers and radio broadcasts. The world knew him as Adrian Crest, the brilliant pianist. But to her, he was still the boy who played for the stars. Then, one winter evening, as snow dusted the rooftops of Belmere, the piano in the library garden played again, the same melody she heard that first night. Alara ran outside, heart racing. There he was, older, tired, but with eyes that still held starlight. "You came back," she whispered. "I kept my promise," he said, pulling a worn letter from his coat. "Now, I play only for you." And so, in the heart of Belmere, where books whispered love and music danced through moonlight, two souls reunited, not in the rush of passion, but in the quiet certainty of a love that had waited, endured, and returned. Together, they lived simply, a librarian and her pianist, writing a love story more beautiful